Hi, folks. So this is Lou Martin. This is my Awakened Spirits Network YouTube channel and Spotify podcast. And I have the great joy of talking to one of the humblest people I ever met in my life and the kindest, David Maria. How's that for a warm introduction, David?
Thanks, Lou. And all I can say is I hope that I live up to that accolade.
You already have in my heart, my friend. I'm very grateful to David because we've had a couple chats and I had the pleasure of having a session with him. And I won't go into the details of it, but it was a huge gift and I'm still processing that. So David is, how do we explain, you are carrying the energy of what is called the Eden template, just to dive straight in?
Just don't hesitate, Lou.
Okay. You know
Just, just,
how
just,
Americans are.
just, as I say, just jump in, and I'll explain a little
Okay.
bit of a thing about me, and that is, I tend to every now and then, I tend to get stuck in a consonant or a valve or or something like that, to where I'll go like or multiple times. I,
Okay.
I have I have yet to really fully understand why that's happening, but I know that it's happening. So, and it's not stuttering. It's just really interesting.
Okay.
So
Well, of course,
in 20
I want you to be at your ease, my friend. So we're going to have fun
oh
together. Just relax.
I
Okay.
am
All right.
I'm just attempting to not explain whatever this is.
No, you're doing
um,
fine. You're doing great.
So in 2018, I was called along with two other people to Africa through dreams. And for me, that was a destiny point. And I had maybe a dozen prophetic dreams, all of which came true. But the large one was meeting three African kings who invited me to come into the bush with them. And I knew that was to study. That meant to come and study.
Okay.
And through I've lost count of how many miracles happened to enable me to be able to make that leap. I didn't have the money for a last minute plane ticket,
Right.
and friends gifted me with the ticket to be able to go.
Beautiful.
And untold synchronicities and miracles. And eventually what happened is that we ended up at the annual prayer vigil,
Hmm.
which circumambulates around Mount Kenya.
Okay.
Mount Kenya is historically known as the abode of the gods.
Okay.
It's one of the original points of creation, back when there was only one continent on the planet.
Right.
And um, when we arrived at this gathering, this was before COVID, so there weren't any real restrictions going on.
Right.
And there was maybe 800 people there, something like that. Several television crews, radio stations. It's a culturally, it's a really big deal within Kenyan society.
Yes.
And realize Kenyan society is very diverse. There's Kenya itself as a country is an artificial border created by England,
Okay.
and there are 42 separate tribes
Wow.
consolidated within that. And they don't always agree. In
Of
fact, most of
course.
the time they don't.
Of course.
So, but when we arrived there, we were guided, we were brought up front and introduced to the crowd, and introduced to all of the dignitaries that were there.
Right.
And then there was one man that is an obvious priest or a shaman, whatever word that you want to use. Turns
Yeah.
out he's a seer.
Okay.
And when I met him and I looked into his eyes, he was the man from my dream.
Wow.
And he looked at me and smiled. and said, David, I dreamt of you. And I smiled right back at him and said, Samuel, his name is Samuel. He said, I dreamt of you too.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
not to belabor, I speak about it more than I really care to, because it's not really what's important. It's a really cool story. It really is.
Yes.
But at one level, it's just a story.
Right.
So after the invocation was done and everybody was sent out on their journey, because to go around Mount Kenya by car, it's over 7-hour drive.
Right.
It's a little over 450 kilometers on twisty, turvy, windy, hilly roads. So afterwards, he gave all of us a blessing.
Okay.
The three of us. I was there with Beth Courier,
Right.
who is currently living in Ireland, and also Teresa Luttenegger,
Right.
who is somewhere on the California coast right now.
I'm good friends with Teresa, David. Yeah.
And
Wonderful.
so he gave Teresa and Beth a blessing. And when it came time to give me one, he heard that still voice inside of him saying, no, give him everything. And it was like being struck by lightning 5 or 6 times in just a few seconds, just these huge bolts of energy coming down through my crown and into the body.
Wow.
And I became, in essence, almost non-functional for the next 3 months.
Good Lord.
So while I was in Africa, then out on in the national parks, I received the transmission for the Eden template, which is just the initial entry into what the teachings are.
Okay.
And like most transmissions, they come in really quick, almost instantaneously, and then you get to unpack it and see and discover what's inside there.
Right.
So after returning home, I was living on the Oregon coast at that time frame. I literally sat in my living room for 3 months, staring out the window.
I read that.
My next door neighbor at the time was convinced that I had a psychotic break, and actually spoke to a friend of theirs that is a psychiatrist back in New York,
Right.
who agreed, yes, he has, and he needs to get into treatment right away. And they would come over all excited with this evidence of what was going on, and I just sit and smile at them and laugh and just go, you don't have a clue.
Right.
What is it's just the integration period.
Powerful.
So and I was grateful for that time frame.
Absolutely.
To just not, I couldn't work at all.
Sure.
Not in the slightest. At that time frame, I was still building websites for a living.
Okay.
And I couldn't answer emails.
Right.
One of my friends went shopping for me, so I didn't have to drive, because where I live, there weren't any real grocery stores.
Okay. Good.
So it's interesting how this comes to be, but the Eden template in its essence is that it contains within it the creation codes of life that are contained within the tree of life.
Right.
And those codes are fully embodied in me. They weren't initially. It took quite a while to get through the embodiment phase of it.
Right.
And don't misunderstand me, who's ever listening to this. I'm not claiming to be fully cooked yet. I am still cooking.
Right, buddy.
There's no question about that.
We're all on the stove.
I definitely embody these frequencies.
Yes, you do. Bless you. Brilliant. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing all that. Thank you.
So that's the short story. The really long story is that last year, about this time, just about a year ago, I returned to Kenya.
Okay.
And I was inducted as the group of seers in Kenya. There are 12 of them. and
Okay.
there's always been 12 of them. Originally, they were all women,
Okay.
and then at the shift into the patriarchy, they became men.
Okay.
That's a long story unto itself.
Wow.
But there's only been 12,
Okay.
and that's it. And the first year that I was there in 2018, and I had a dream that told me that I was the 13th seer, and was told that that's not possible. It can't be, because there's only ever been 12. Then I didn't contest it. I knew what the truth was inside me.
Okay.
So in 2021, I guess it was 22, because it was in January. I was initiated and inducted into their society as the highest degree of seer that they know of,
Right.
and accepted as the first ever white person within their society, but also the first ever 13th seer.
Wow. Wow.
And the final, as part of that induction, the final veils between my consciousness and connecting directly with the creator were dissolved.
Wow.
And of course, then as the kicker on top of it, I got really serious COVID almost the day afterwards,
Yeah.
which dovetailed into it perfectly, because it was a major cleansing. It
Yeah.
was just dumping any toxins that I had left in the body. And I was really sick. I died so many times, it's not even worth talking about how many times I died. But from my perspective, that didn't happen. From my perspective, I took a journey here, and then I went there, and then I went over here, because I now could do that.
Wow. Wow.
From the outside of me looking at me, yeah, my body died multiple times. That's just me leaving the body.
Okay.
I, I don't think I was. I don't think I was in the actual danger of dying.
Right.
Some people do, but
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing.
And I'm still working with the repercussions of that, because I had long COVID. I still had long COVID.
Yeah.
My body, even though it's better, I can actually walk now a little bit.
Okay.
I can stand up, move around the room,
Okay. Good.
but
Thank God. Thank God.
I don't have the kind of strength that I used to have. So it's what has come clear is that, and this is actually true for everybody, is that we're literally rebuilding our bodies, every single cell, because that's what is necessary to make this next leap in consciousness that we're in the middle of.
I believe that. That makes perfect sense. It absolutely makes perfect sense, David. Amazing.
And, and you know how it is. Your belief is not required.
Well, just, they keep getting us out of the way. That's what's required, isn't it?
I was just teasing it in terms of, it doesn't matter if we believe it or not, it's still
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Thy will be done, my friend. That's the short version.
I would concur with that.
Yes, thank you. I thought you might. Yes. Amazing, 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 David. Well, of course, I mean, I am blessed to have Teresa as my friend. I haven't heard all this from her because she and I have been talking about other things over the last few years. She came out to Ireland,
Yeah.
and Wales. We didn't meet, but we definitely had. We've done a few interviews and some long conversations, and we've gotten quite close. So we'll look forward to hearing her take on all that. I hope at some point as well. Here, it's incredible.
It's a little different than mine. So realize that currently all of the world, especially most of the world's indigenous cultures, they're all still very patriarchal, or mostly patriarchal, and that's not who I am.
Sure.
So everybody has different experiences around what happened to me and what was present.
Right.
I'm very clear that yes, I was inducted into what is a very patriarchal society,
Okay.
And I'm also very clear that they accepted me as I am, because I'm not patriarchal.
Right.
They accepted into their society, and that is the initial seed of changing from within.
Sure. Sure. Well, brilliant. Yeah. You know, if there's no contrast, what are we doing here? You know, we always need that contrast. It seems to push against, right?
It's always lovely to see what the contrast is.
There you go. Beautifully said. Yes.
And to be able to love it.
Yeah. Well said. Absolutely. Make friends with it. That's my take on it today. Um, well, again, there's just so many places you and I could take this conversation. Um,
Like I said,
I'm
this is
delighted.
your show.
It's
Take take it where you want.
you're a beautiful feast of consciousness, and I'm a hungry and curious participant here with you in this whole thing. So it's delightful. Um, I mean, what's coming up for me to share with your permission, David, is that you personally have had an incredibly intense life and have found the strength, the willingness to hold on despite many, many challenges. And you've paid your dues many times over, my friend, to be sitting where you're sitting. I believe nothing has been handed to you. No one saved you from yourself. Like we all have to learn. We have to go through this trail of tears, and you've come through a huge initiation in this lifetime, even before all this happened. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, all right. I just want to share that with people, my dear friend and soul brother here, because sometimes glamour and egos and comparing and blah blah blah. The little self wants this and wants that and thinks this and thinks that, and I just want to let people know. You had your crucifixion before your resurrection, and as you've said, you're still, still walking with grace, one small step at a time.
I had the privilege of going through the full quadfecta of abuse, of physical, sexual, emotional, and mental abuse.
Right. Bless you.
And that's not. I don't say that to evoke empathy or pity from anybody,
I know that.
but more just to let everybody know that no matter how broken you think you are or that you might be, you're not, because underneath it is who you really are.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I'm not saying that my journey was easy. It took a lot to walk through it.
Yeah.
And I lost myself in drug addiction for many years, probably a decade and a half.
Same here.
And that was just self-medication.
Right.
And by drug addiction, I don't mean like I was a heroin addict or anything on that order, although that would be okay. It would have been just what it is. So I happen to be one of those people that was lost off the deep end smoking marijuana.
Same.
And was completely and totally addicted.
Same. Yeah.
And grace came in and changed everything just in a heartbeat.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And it was done. It was over.
Yeah. Yeah. Bless you. Yeah, that was my 20s as well, David. I was high every day of my life in my 20s.
That was my 20s and 30s.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I was building houses at the time as a builder. I would smoke a couple of joints a day. I would smoke on the way to work, and another one at lunch, and another one. It just
Right.
I was off the deep end.
Yeah, well, you have me there, my friend. I'd get through the day and get high at night and play my guitar and eat my ice cream and read my books. That was my thing.
I did everything stoned.
Bless you. Smoke 2 joints in the morning, smoke 2 joints at night.
Just more.
Yeah, okay. Right. It's a song. I don't know. You may not remember it. Well, anyway,
Um,
no, you're fine. You're fine. A couple old hippies here can revel in that we've survived. Um, when did you start? Living more as. Let me put it this way. It's my remembrance from our earlier conversation. You have felt yourself quite. That you were a mystic your whole life. Is that right?
yes, I've always been sensitive to the energies and the frequencies and be able to feel them.
Right.
The the difficulty is that initially through the abuse that I experienced, I was never in the body. But
Okay.
that's also one reason why I could feel the energies because I wasn't in the physical body. I didn't. The first birthday that I ever celebrated in the body was when I was 73. Because I'd never fully come into the body until that point.
How old are you now, young
It took
man?
it took almost not quite, but almost 77.
Right, right. Well, that's quite a sentence. I never heard that one before in my life, David. I have to tell you, that's incredible.
Most people are not in their bodies.
Sure, sure.
They're they're just they're just not whatever level of trauma
Yeah,
or conditioning that they have experienced and accepted into themselves. They're just not present in their body.
yeah,
And if you want really to make full change, to fully change within your consciousness, is you have to be in the physical body. That's why we're here.
yes,
If it was possible to do this work outside of the body, we could do it in non-physical. We wouldn't have to even take incarnation.
sure. No, I agree. Yeah. The rainbow bridge between heaven and earth is in our body.
It's not in our body, it is our body.
It is our body. Better said. Thank you.
So
Yeah,
the body is just the densest part of our energy fields.
right,
And
right.
there's the many subtle layers of our auric field around us, and the body just happens to be the densest one.
Right, right.
So it's still an energy in essence.
Yes, yes. But yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. To really be in the present moment, with our authentic, fully available self, with our hearts open, in integrity, in authenticity, available, you know, that's the work, isn't it?
You have to be in the body to do
Yeah.
it. And if you could see the queue, if you will, of, of souls that are lined up wanting to take incarnation here on the earth now, including very evolved masters. It's a huge queue. A
Wow.
lot of things would love to be in incarnation right now, to be able to be in the middle of these phenomenal energies that are transforming not only the earth but also the entire universe that we live in,
Yes.
of which this is just one of many universes.
Sure. Sure. Yes. Um,
The energy the energy is changing so deeply and so quickly
yeah.
that it is a phenomenal gift, precious gift, to
Yeah.
be here and be able to be present at this moment.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant. Excuse me. Well, when we talk about the Eden template, I think of you and I have chatted about Judith Kusel, who we both love and respect, and she talks about Elysium. And
Yeah.
as you said, when Africa was the only continent on the earth, and all life, began in the Garden of Africa and the Garden of Eden there. Is there more about that we might understand in terms of what's happening today, or?
Not necessarily in terms of what's happening today, because the energies that are coming in are new. This has never happened before. The way things tended to work is that an individual might self-realize before in previous times. They would undergo their own self-realization, and it was not uncommon that they would drop their body and go back into spirit realm as a master. But that's not what we're doing now. That's not the prevailing energies that are happening. Now everything is being transformed in terms of the matter that we are, the physical bodies. And it's not just our bodies, it's the home that surrounds you, it's the floor underneath you, it's the animals, it's the plants, it's the elements, the air, earth, fire, water, the planet herself. We're all embodying these new frequencies, and that is bringing about the shift into what we all know of as the golden age, which is how long it's going to be. I don't know, because these things are very cyclical.
Mm.
But the level of transformation that is happening right now is unprecedented. It's never happened before. And I promise you, all of the universe is watching to see what happens here. What are we doing? Because we are the ones that are embodying this frequency and bringing it into creation.
Yes. Yes.
And what is it that we're going to create or co-create?
Yes.
It's up to us.
Sure. Sure. Well, that's beautiful.
And by us, I don't mean our normal waking consciousness. That involves our personalities. No, I mean aligning ourselves with Source, with the Creator fully,
Yeah.
and letting that energy come through us to where, as my amazingly incredible friend Wanda Vitale says, that we're just like a leaf that blows where Spirit wants us to go.
Right. Right. Yes. Absolutely. That's right. I mean, the vast majority of people on the planet, I mean, what I say to my friend, let me start this way. What I say to my friends is, we're lucky we know what's happening to any degree. We're lucky we have some idea of what we can do about it to any degree, to ask for help, to ask for guidance, to ask for healing, to bless the earth, to shine our light, to share our love, to share our gifts, etc., to strive to be an example and an inspiration and a source of hope and help to people. All of that. Is there anything you might add to, where we're at and how we help the vast majority of the world that has no idea what's actually happening at the moment?
We hold our frequency steady, and we shine our light.
There you go.
There's the time for holding back is way past.
Right.
And remember, nobody's this is going to be fairly difficult for some people, or it might be. Well, there's a fair amount of people, everybody on the planet is experiencing these new energies, even if they're not conscious of them.
Sure.
For some people, they're not ready to make the jump into completely surrendering. They're very stuck in what they believe in their consciousness, what they believe is true, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
And a lot of those people are not going to be able to make the shift, and they're going to be held back and repeat the third grade again.
Right.
And that's literally as close a description as to what might happen as I can come up with.
Yeah.
Or that I feel, is because nobody's going to be left behind.
Right. Right.
Everybody is an eternal being. There's no question about that.
Right. I agree.
And it's just a question of, are you ready to jump off the side of the cliff and do that willingly and completely surrender,
right,
to where you fully understand, as Lama Trump has said, you're falling. The bad news is that you're falling and there is no parachute. And the good news is there's no ground.
Yes, yes, I shared that post from your page. That was brilliant. Yeah,
We literally, completely and totally surrender until there is nothing left of us as
yeah,
a separate individual, and we
yeah,
just merge back in.
yes,
Everybody will go through that stage. It's just a question of when.
right,
Nobody's going to be left behind.
right.
How is that? How is it possible that somebody could cease to be?
Sure.
It's not.
No,
That doesn't mean it's going to be really fun for some people. It's going to be fairly difficult.
no.
And the other side of it is, what do I think that I know? I have lived through so many occurrences where my life has changed just in an instant because of grace. And grace is merely the divine love of the I am. Is merely the divine love of the I am. Such a silly, trite way to
No,
approach
it's
grace.
lovely. I understand what you mean. Your heart.
Grace could come in the next millisecond and change everything.
Yes,
And it is, whether people realize it or not, it is softening hearts.
sure.
And
That's right.
that's usually the first step, is somebody's heart begins to soften rather than being so hard in terms of there's a fixed belief.
Right.
And I mean, there's a lot of stuff on the planet that needs to be let go of.
Sure.
Because it just no longer is sustainable.
Yes, I agree with that. Absolutely. Beautiful. David, when you talk about your upcoming course on January 7th, and when people commit to working with you in an ongoing way, what can they expect? What does that look like? Big question.
So I offer
Sorry, big question.
I offer currently an 11-week class called Freedom from the Known. And yes, I know that is the title of a book written by J. Krishnamurti, but I did not know of the book. I've never read any of his material. I've seen sound bites of his interviews, but I didn't know it when the name came through for me to be able to use. So
I think he's okay with it.
It's not something that I can copyright or trademark.
Right.
But I fully acknowledge that it's him. I just didn't know it at the time. I'm innocent of culpability in that, or subterfuge
God,
in
yes.
that one.
No, it speaks to eternal truths that come around again, you know.
If you want to really transform your consciousness, you can't do it with all of the things that you currently know. What you currently know is how you arrived at the place that you are now. And so the course is 11 separate classes where we go through activation and cleansing, and activation and cleansing, and activation and cleansing. We do this work quantumly. We cleanse multi-generationally through our familial lines. We at one point we even collapse the incarnational stream, because all of the lives that most people refer to as past lives or future lives, there's only this moment. There is no such thing as past or future. Those are just GPS coordinates that help us navigate ourselves a little bit through the artificial construct of time. And it's also what is used to, so if you can feel that all of your lives are being lived simultaneously, concurrently right now, and it's the construct of time that separates them from each other, so they're not bleeding into your consciousness here right now, which is, if you're not prepared for it or not ready for it, it's crazy making, because you start having experiences of other lives that you have no reference point to be able to put them in, which is what happens a lot, I think, I feel with people that wake up really quickly, like almost instantly. Because mental institutions are filled with some of the greatest geniuses on our planet. They can't function in the world because everything is bleeding over too quickly. So we do a lot of conscious working with collapsing those structures to where everything comes into this now moment, and you have an opportunity to directly connect with the I am presence inside of you.
Beautiful.
It's received by each individual at the level that they're ready to be able to receive it. So there are people currently in the current class that have taken the course maybe 4 times.
Oh.
And so it's difficult for me to say what will happen for each individual, because what will happen is what you are ready to be able to go through, and how much work you're willing to do. Some of the people that are in the 3rd or 4th time, they're now experiencing that they are fully ready to be able to make those changes.
Right.
In the first couple of times of taking the classes, they weren't. And I'm not saying that's not going to be the case for everybody. There are some people that come into the class and they have it already.
Oh.
And they didn't really need to take the class, but they were guided to do it. So
Wow.
It's difficult to speak to, but
Right.
let's just say that it is a journey of transformation.
Right.
And it opens up all of the doors. It helps you cross through veils.
Right.
In terms of your consciousness that are, shall we say, thou shalt not pass places in your consciousness that you just can't seem to get by, and we open those doors.
Right.
And then as with everything, it is up to each individual as to what they're going to do next.
Sure.
How they're going to progress. Are they going to progress? Are they going to take? Is this going to be a game of Mother May I? Are you going to take 2 steps forward, 1 back?
Right.
So it's always interesting to see how it's going to evolve in each individual.
Yeah.
And the wonderful part is that this happens within a group, so you get the extra rocket fuel boost, if you will, of being present with a group of like-minded people, meaning open-minded people, that are willing to, that are, at least they don't have any open resistance to stretching.
Right. Amazing. Wonderful.
It truly is, and I love to share these classes because I go through the classes the same as everybody else. Yes, there's the transmission that comes through me. Yes, it's different every single time. There's no question that it's different. I never know what's going to come out of my mouth when the transmission starts. Once it gets going, it just takes its own. It goes on its own.
Sure.
Because I'm not the one directing it. Spirit is directing it.
Amen.
And nonetheless, I am still taking all of the classes with everybody that comes, because we don't grow in a circle like this. We grow in a spiral.
Right.
So we will come around to similar points of frequency, just on a higher vibrational plane. And there may be something there similar that we thought we had already worked with and dealt with and we're done. No, there's a more subtle aspect of it that needs to be looked at.
Yeah. My guides say you don't get finished, you get better. Finished is the mind. Better is the heart.
Yeah, and that's a lot what we do. Is this is guidance away from thinking, away from the mind.
Yes.
And into the heart. And if there is things that happen with the mind, it's because it becomes aligned with the heart.
Amen.
The natural energy sequence that most people have forgotten is that when we receive information, which is receive a knowingness, which is not the same as thinking.
Right.
Most people think in the order of 75 to 90,000 thoughts a day. And most of those thoughts are things that they thought the day before, the day before, the day before. They just loop. So, but knowingness is something else. Knowingness just comes. It just appears, and you know it's true. It has a vibration in it.
Yes.
So the natural path of that is to come through the crown, and then the brain receives it, but then it gives it to the heart.
Yeah.
And the heart decides what, if anything, needs to be done. If nothing needs to be done, that's okay. If something needs to be implemented, then it gives it back to the brain to be able to do that.
Yes.
We've as a culture, as a planet, most people have short-circuited that pathway, and it comes here, and then they decide what they're going to do with it,
Right.
rather than giving it to the heart. So there is definitely a heart brain resonance in terms of the neural pathways that we work a lot with.
Beautiful. Yeah.
If I do say so myself,
Sure, my
it's a
friend.
really fast.
I'm sure it is.
I've taught it many times, and I look forward to it every time.
Absolutely. Well, I would love to create the reality of being there for that next one. So I'm just putting that out to the universe right now. That would be a joy to experience that with you, David. Yeah. You know, the heart knows what the mind struggles to understand is the other quote that my guides gave me. And like you're saying, it really does always happen in the heart. Real change, real healing, real love, of course, has to come from the heart, and the mind has to learn to bend, to submit, to surrender, to trust, to listen.
It needs to understand that it is part of a unified whole, and it is not the ruler.
Yes.
It is a servant. The brain is just another organ in the body, like a heart or a kidney or a liver or
Yes.
pancreas or whatever it might be.
Yes.
And it's just learning how to use it properly.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. Amen. And for all the grief and sorrow and pain and struggles that we manage to create for ourselves in this journey, it throws us back into our hearts. Those crisis moments, right?
Always.
Yeah, man. There's no other way out. The way in is the way out.
The only way out is through.
That's it. Yeah, the mind is a wonderful servant and a terrible master. That's the other one.
And at the same time, I will stress this again: grace can enter any moment, unbidden, unasked for, and completely transform everything.
Yeah. I agree.
And it does happen.
Yeah. Space for grace.
For most people, they're smaller things, like little tiny increments of grace.
Sure, little miracles. Right.
Rather than big ones, but it is still grace.
Yeah. Beautiful. I believe that. Brilliant. Well, one other thing I'm inspired to ask you, my friend, before we finish up here is when people talk about the new earth and these kinds of energies, I would welcome your thoughts about your experience, perception of what that means to you. Is that a fair question?
New earth, sure.
Okay.
New earth is a frequency of vibration, and there's not just one new earth. There are lots of them. There are, as you are able to align with and attune the frequency inside of you, to the other dimensions that are present with us, because all of the dimensions interpenetrate with each other. They're all present here right now. The only reason you're not aware of a 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th dimension is because you're not able to match your frequency to it. So the version of Earth that each one of us live in is a reflection of the frequency of our vibration. So if you are a person that is completely and totally entrenched and stuck in the 3D world, that's the version of the world you get to live in.
I hear you.
So I very seldom enter into the 3D world. It happens every now and then, but it's not a given and a constant. It's not the norm.
Okay.
But if you're able to match your frequency to the 5th or the 6th or the 7th dimension, that's the version of Earth that you live in. That's the version of the Earth that you experience. You experience the miracles that are available when you're aligned with those frequencies.
Beautiful.
And the beauty of it is that this is where the best thing that I can do for you is to work on myself, and the best thing that you can do for me is to work on yourself. This is how we create new Earth for everybody. Sure. Because the more of us that are doing this, that are creating and co-creating from higher frequency states of consciousness, and we're aligned with to where that is our vibration, the more those new energies begin to work with everybody. So initially I spoke of the fact that we're just being bombarded, it seems like, with these high frequency and love energies that are coming from the Creator. And each one of us is able to embody them in our physical body, which is not necessarily easy, but it's also not difficult at another level. It's a conundrum at one level. The more that energy spreads out and is available to everybody. So anytime one of us clears something within ourselves, like if we clear a trauma event that we've experienced and there's a stuck energy that was present in our body, whatever it is that was manifesting somehow, or maybe we couldn't even feel it, whatever it happens to be, when we clear it, that energy of having cleared it is now available to everybody on the planet. So we may, as an individual, had to go through something difficult in order to clear something, but the next person that is stepping into that energy, they don't have to go through that degree of difficulty because it's already been cleared.
Yeah.
So on a massive global scale, that's kind of what's happening. Right. Is that we're all creating a field that is almost effortless compared to what it used to be 10, 15 years ago, for people to be able to step into.
Beautiful.
Because the more difficult work has already been done. The more difficult work of working through the density layers has been done.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you, David. Do you one of the ladies I'm studying with is named Addie Lamborn, and she talks about the great solar flash. Is that a concept that you work with as well?
No, at least my understanding of what the flash is that people are waiting for this singular event that's going to happen, that this wave of consciousness is going to just flash through everybody, and everybody's going to be changed. They're going to wake up just almost instantly. From my perspective, the flash is internal and unique to each person.
So, well said.
It's not a global collective.
Right. Right. Okay.
Remember, everybody has free will to a certain point. At a certain point, you completely surrender your will totally,
Yeah.
and it's not my will, it's thy will,
Yes.
and you just let it go,
Yeah.
and the flash completely overrides anybody's ability to make a choice,
Right.
because there are no at a certain point collectively how this is going to work is kind of anybody's guess, really and truly.
I agree. Yeah. It's
We'll
not for anyone to know.
we'll, we'll see.
Yeah.
So I don't wish to be critical of anybody,
Sure. Sure.
because it's not my place. I have no judgment towards
Right.
anybody.
I understand.
I have only compassion. But at one level, it abdicates our personal responsibility to clean ourselves up.
Right.
That we're sitting around waiting for that moment that will happen, and we'll be instantly cleansed, and we don't have to worry about doing our own work.
We're certainly not there yet.
And at the same time, grace happens as it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. It's again, it's well, you mentioned Krishnamurti. I can't finish the conversation here. Freedom from the Known. I believe I read that. And when I was 16, David, I actually, through a series of events, got invited to sit out in the Oak Grove in Ojai with Krishnamurti and a bunch of other high school students. And nothing he said was very amazing, but what I remember is I didn't remember him approaching. He was just suddenly there. That stood out in my mind. Like, how did that happen? How come I didn't see that? You know, and that actually got me meditating. So you're mentioning freedom from the known and Krishnamurti. I just want to bring that little personal experience to this talk about the eternal mysteries. It's a beautiful thing because, like we're saying about the mind and the heart, you know, the mind can't really comprehend what the heart, the love, the wisdom, the oneness that the heart carries within it, the soul, the spirit, you know, these, the divine self, etc. We're That's what we're in service to, you know, and the more consciously and willingly and deliberately, you know, we can surrender to that unknown, the clearer life becomes. You know, living from the inside out starts to become understandable and manageable, and then you're looking for grace. You're making friends with grace, and you're having that sense of personal integrity energetically, you know, on every level. How can I be a clean vessel for this beautiful, magical, loving energy? So I hear you.
So let me read you a quote by Krishnamurti.
How nice.
So remember that he was discovered in India by the Theosophical Society.
Sure. Yeah.
And they said he was going to be the next world teacher.
I do.
They adopted him and educated him and got him, sent him to through college, et cetera, and then he announced no.
I know what you're going to read. Yes.
That's not who I am.
Yes.
And went off on his own. But
Yes.
he has this beautiful little small. So Krishnamurti was probably he had a mind that was just unbelievable. And in my personal opinion, he did not, and this is just my personal opinion, he did not have the emotional ability to be able to really connect with people emotionally.
I agree.
It was through the mind.
Yeah, I agree.
Nonetheless, he is who he is, and he was connected. So
Yeah.
here's the quote. Say you are walking by yourself or with somebody and you've stopped talking. You are surrounded by nature. There is no dog barking or noise of a car passing or even the flutter of a bird. You are completely silent, and nature around you is also wholly silent. in that state of silence, both in the observer and the observed, when the observer is not translating what they observe into thought, in that silence, there is a different quality of beauty. There is neither nature nor the observed. There is a state of mind and heart wholly, completely alone. It is alone, yet not in isolation, alone in stillness. And that stillness is beauty.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant.
In other words, if you're out walking in nature and you see a tree, can you just observe that being without translating that into that's a tree, or that's an elm tree or an oak tree or whatever tree? Don't translate it into thought.
Right.
Just experience the beauty of the being that you are with in that moment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the good stuff, my friend. That's so great.
It's really difficult not to, especially in the beginning, it's really difficult for most people not to translate their experiences into thought.
Right, right,
Just allow them to be.
right.
And the biggest one that we all come up against is death. Can we experience death without translating it into what it's going to be? And death can be anything. Like if you smoke cigarettes and you're quitting, that's a death. Can you stop smoking without translating into what is it going to be when I quit smoking?
Yeah, yeah.
Can you just allow yourself to have the experience that you're having in this moment and just be?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I have a slightly what I consider to be a different mind than most people, because my brain is mostly empty, and it doesn't think a lot. I mean, I can still function.
Yeah.
Like words form occasionally, and I still know how to drive a car, yada yada yada, blah blah blah,
Yeah,
all of those.
yeah. Human things.
I was with new friends on Thanksgiving, and we were talking about the nature of the mind, and I mentioned that, and it was dessert time, and they said, well, good, you can fill it with cheesecake then. So I did.
Excellent.
We had cheesecake.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, um, my favorite is Ram Dass, who says, "There's doing and being and doobie doobie doo."
Yeah. He is definitely of his generation.
Oh man, he was a saint. David, thank you, my friend. That I'm topped up and good for there. Everything's you've ticked all my boxes, and I'm so grateful to you for your time. Is there any last thought you want to leave us with? We'll send people the link for your page there and Facebook and this upcoming class on the 7th of January.
You can find out everything that you need on my website, which is just theedentemplate.com. I've been trying to get the domain name davidmaria.com, but for those of you that live in Europe, you know that recently the Prime Minister of Italy, that was his name, David Maria.
Okay.
And one of the domain buyers and sellers bought the domain name. They want to me an outrageous amount of money because they were convinced he was going to buy it. He's no longer the prime minister.
Right. Right. Okay.
They want to sell it. They want to exchange it for a reasonable remuneration. I'm willing, but I'm not willing to pay like over $2,000 for a domain name that they
Yeah.
paid 11 for.
Well, that's good. We'll keep that in our thoughts and prayers for you, David, as well. Absolutely. Absolutely. Bless you. Bless you. Thank you for your time. God bless you. I hope we'll do this again. And I would love to be there January 7th and I'm putting that out there. So thank you, David.
Thank you, Lou. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you and just to be able to share.
Brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a great day, my friend. God bless you.